Hey everybody, this is Silver Spook, and this is the Silver Spook Happy Halloween Haunted White House Capitol Horror Ghosted Government Zombie Affordable Care Act and Food Stamps Franken-Wars and other spooky scares stream video. Let me make sure I get my gimmick up here before I forget. Spooky. I actually have a literal silver spook mask. So there we go. That's my. There's your production value. Ooh. Okay. I'll stop. Now I'm a real video essayist, YouTuber. Anyways, so we're airing out my theater nerd drama department, my university minor. Anyways, Haunted White House, Capitol Horror, Ghosted Government, Zombie Affordable Care. What am I talking about? So happy Halloween. If you don't celebrate it, then happy whatever scary time. Happy watching slasher movies month, or obviously we do our science fiction here, so we watched Aliens this month, and shout out to what was that movie we just watched? We watched Doom. Actually, we watched the Doom Annihilation, so that's also a science fiction horror game based movie. So this is scary times, but there's other things other than just watching scary movies and going to haunted houses. I mean, the kind that have, werewolves, people in werewolf costumes and haunted brides crawling around on the floor. And there's a lot of wheezing because of inhaling all of the artificial fog, the aerosolized soybean oil. There's a lot of that going on in the haunted houses. So, that's going to be really nice though. The good deal is because of the zombie United States country and its imploding tariff wars and self-owns, the price of soybean oil-based fog is going to go down. So it's going to be cheaper to run a haunted house, which is good because there's not going to be any money for food or healthcare or anything else. So all people will be able to do is stroll around dressed up as, slutty Pumpkinhead or slutty Jason or slutty Ghost. Don't do that though, because you start looking like a KKK clan member. So just a pro tip, don't do that. In the haunted house, the fog machines will have half price fog because all the unsold American soybeans as the U.S. economy implodes due to the largest soybean purchaser no longer allowing American farmers to sell, collapsing millions of people's and the entire the last thing America actually produces, which is corn, soybeans, and a couple other agricultural products, imploding the last actual real economic output. The upshot of that haunted American economy, the zombie economy, is cheaper fog machines. You can get cheaper canola oil. So if you want to deep fry some Frankenstein head churros, or if you want to make some soybean oil is an important ingredient in pumpkin pie. I read that from an AI generated chat GPT written cookbook in between the chatbot trying to output AI generated boobs out, because Sam Altman, that's the zombie AI, the specter of artificial intelligence, right, is scaring everybody. Or the specter of the AI bubble pop is scaring Sam Altman, and the specter of AI mass unemployment is also a scary prospect. But all of that is ultimately on a zombie rotting corpse of a country, economy, system. The capitalist structure itself is a haunted house of cards that is crumbling faster than the East Wing of the White House. We're going to get to those updates, I promise. But I just got to do my opening monologue. Okay, so anyways, but yeah, so I'm also going to have a Halloween party later on today. So if you want to come by, show off your costume, there's going to be a costume contest. There's at least 3 participants. I just showed you my costume. No, I'm going to probably do something else. But so if you win the costume contest, you may get a free copy of Neofeud. Neofeud is kind of a horror game. Some people actually thought Neofeud was a horror game, which is on sale right now. I should probably say that more frequently, because first and foremost, a game developer. Technically, most of my time is spent doing that. But anyways, don't forget it's on sale. Go grab it. It's spookily cheap right now, and it's 70% off. But also, we're gonna have a Halloween party later on today on the Twitch stream. So stop by. But anyways, back to the current events. Sidebars aside. So the haunted house of the United States, the haunted White House, the United States White House is haunted. The slaves and the mass unalived indigenous people upon which the White House is built, their spirits still walk the halls of the White House. You know, all of the United States is haunted. It's a haunted country because millions and millions and millions of people and lives were lost, exploited, tortured. Entire cultures, people were exterminated, right? And just mass numbers of people have suffered and died. Billions of people around the world, ultimately, and all of their ectoplasm fills the White House and the United States Capitol and all American minds at all times, right? So The Shining, right? Speaking of horror movies, The Shining is in part the psychological manifestation of a settler colonial GNOCIDAL empires, worried mind, the guilt and the sins of the past that has built the present, right, is always there. Doesn't matter whether the White House is being destroyed. If the White House becomes a Gothic Newcastle, the way that the European feudal leaders, like in Crimson Peak by Guillermo del Toro, he's putting out a Frankenstein, I hear, very soon, getting rave 5-star reviews all over the place nowadays. So there you go. You can watch that. I don't think you can watch that yet, unless you're some kind of, unless you are the highest level of unless you are the highest level of the ghouls and ghosts and freaks of America. You can't see that yet, but Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein coming soon. And so, but like The Shining was a movie about, in part, that it's built upon a Native American burial site, and it's actually that's Stephen King. It's Stephen King's book, but that horror movies, American horror movies, certainly are all almost always deal with that historical guilt and like, what if somebody does to us? What if our crimes that have built all of our stolen wealth on this stolen land and participation in this global slasher system, right? We're all like, Americans are the Jasons and the Michael Myers of the world, right? Running around, right? Killers going around the world. But right now in Venezuela, Colombia, fishermen in boats and having bits of cocaine sprinkled on them, right? That's trafficked by the U.S. government and the CIA, and then they'll be called narco traffickers. But that's happening right now, right? In Central South America, in the Pacific, and in the Caribbean. Obviously, in the Middle East, America is a slasher. America is a werewolf. It's American werewolf in Bethlehem. Right? It's eating everything over there. And so the guilt, the White House is always haunted. You know, the American capital, the American system, the American mind is always haunted. You know, and as a native person, I'm a native Hawaiian person. As an indigenous person, right, under the United States is horror. I am a silver spook in that sense because I like to use silverized trench coats. I have silver Halloween masks. Have you know, $6 million worth of silver stowed in a ship off the coast of an unknown Hawaiian island. I'm not going to tell you about. No, I'm just kidding. That's just the plot for Joseph Conrad's Nostromo, which is also about the specter of the specter of the horrors committed under a colonial system. But I was a native Hawaiian. I am a scary person. I'm a spooky person for the crimes of the United States and the colonial system that is still occupying Hawaii. So, in one sense, like, you know, there's always a terror in the minds. There's always a terror in the Caucasoid mind. There's always a terror in the American mind. Like, what if the injustices, what if the horrors that we have committed come back to get us in the night or in the day, you know, or like, what if the global South, what if the global majority, right? Like, what if all those downtrodden around the world that we've exploited for centuries rise up, like, you know, like the night of the living dead, like the night of the living Burkina Faso, and, you know, it's like the night of the living Chinese, right? It's like dawn of the pink tide, like dawn of Colombia, right? That's Gustavo Petro is the Colombian that's resisting the United States is like saying, like, no, we're not gonna just be a little plant for your dirty war narco trafficking. We're not gonna just accept whatever you say. We're gonna fight back. And, you know, like, what if, you know, what if all of the powers that are the U.S. has historically attacked in the East, in the South, in Africa, join together and, like, you know, creepy crawly into the United States? What if like Russian, Chinese, North Korean, Iranian, Venezuelan use the U.S. border with Mexico as Trump starts a war, and they all invade America from the north and the south at the same time? That's Red Dawn. There's actually a literal movie. They made that movie in the 1980s, and they made a remake in the 2010s. But that's the terror, right? The Red Menace. Right? It's like the Red Skull, the red not Red Skull. That's Captain America. Like the Red Menace, right? This horde of communists coming across the Pacific Ocean, coming from Russia across Alaska through Canada down into America. Like, what if Justin Trudeau is actually Castro's son, and then he secretly lets the CCP down through, you know, the border, and then Russia and Venezuela and Cuba, you know, the missile crisis, and, you know, just come flooding in, and then capitalism and the Western white world is destroyed. Western civilization ceases to exist and is slashed into little pieces. That's the terror that runs. That's just like what runs the West, basically. That's the perpetual enmity that must be preserved. That's the threat of inflation, right? That's the spooky specter of communism, the spooky specter of the loss of hegemony, the spooky specter of the end of white supremacy, the spooky specter of having to pay for that $450 trillion worth of stolen wealth from the global South to the global North, from the indigenous to the colonizer, right? And that's just terrifying on a grand scale. And so anyways, but now we'll get into the more specific. I probably should have ended with that. Happy Halloween, though. I just wanted to give everybody a good, nice scare. I wanted to give colonizers a nice scare. That's why I did that. So now I'm just joking, though. This is all just you know, this is all just smoke and mirrors. This is all just rubber masks and fake red dye number 40 chocolate syrup. Don't worry about it. Nothing bad's gonna happen to you. America and the collective West will totally be fine. Y'all be absolutely totally fine and normal. Nothing bad's gonna happen. The government shutdown is gonna end. You're gonna get your food stamps and the Affordable Care Act, and your healthcare costs will stay expensive, just not quite as expensive, and everything will be totally fine. But yeah, anyway, so what is up, Gio? So I'm just trying to check the chat here. But yeah, so let's get to the specifics. Enough with the jokes and opening monologue and sermon on the Crimson Peak. So Capitol Horror, what is happening here? The White House is being destroyed. America is being, the capital of the United States is being sacked and is just being annihilated. The end. That's it. Okay. Let's go home. You can stop the video now. No, the White House is the East Wing. Game over. Communism wins. America's Donald Trump blew up the White House. Communism won. So Trump is planning to. I'm trying to get some random article about this. I'm trying to get the actual White House East Wing. Trump's East Wing demolition of the White House speaks to his wrecking ball presidency. Okay, so this is a beautiful picture. I love this picture. You love to see, a monster get taken down. You love to see a monster get blown up. When the Nazis melted down at the end of that Indiana Jones movie, it's like pretty gross and kind of freaky. Actually, kind of give me a lot of nightmares. Speaking of scary movies, but that's a glorious scene. You watch a bunch of horrible things go away, and so when a symbol of evil and death and destruction worldwide, obviously to our friends in the Middle East in the ongoing human rights violations, and obviously to the global South under the Monroe Doctrine and the global East, and of course to indigenous people, as Hanani K. Trask, a Native Hawaiian leader, said. The United States gives death to Native people. So, you love to see, a monster. It's like when the Terminator gets, speaking of horror, when the Terminator gets crushed by the vehicle compacting machine. It's really not. I'm just joking. I don't want to see houses get destroyed. An excavator works to clear rubber after the east wing of the White House was demolished on Thursday. Everyone says the same thing the first time they go inside the White House. It's much smaller than they expected. In the West Wing, Oval Office, Cabinet Room, and the offices of top officials are within steps of one another. The Executive Mansion, with its great state spaces like the East Room and State Dining Room, is elegant but intimate. The cross hall leading to the front door on the north front of the building is imposing but not overwhelming. This is where the haunting picture. See, it's very everyone's very scared right now. CNN is terrified that they won't have anything to report on when there's no America left. Like, what are they gonna do? Talk about the price of Labubus in Beijing, which will be the capital of the new world. That's terrifying. That is terrifying. Hillary Clinton literally said that's her nightmares, is that the West won't rule the world anymore, and it will the center fulcrums of the human civilization will shift to the east. Oh, too late. The cross hall, anyways. This is where a haunting picture of a pensive John F. Kennedy hangs, where President Barack Obama walked down the long red carpet to announce the killing of Osama bin Laden in May 2011. There's nothing like the scenes in the TV show The West Wing, with idealistic young staffers doing the walk and talk through endless corridors. Don't watch The West Wing unless you want to get imperialist brainwashing. Walk and talk through endless corridors of busy power players. If you try to do that in the real West Wing, you'd hit a wall and break your nose. Well, I mean, America's hitting a wall and breaking its nose. It's called the Great Wall of Steel, built by 1.4 billion Chinese. They gave fair warning. A couple years ago, and America smashing into it with its tariff, trade war, and now it's blooding its face on its lack of gallium, antimony, and other rare earths. So, have fun having no economy and no weapons to blow up anyone ever again, because the Chinese have cut you off. Most presidents, unlike Donald Trump, who loaded, so you're breaking your nose already. So right, you don't need to walk into the West Wing to break your nose. All you gotta do is just have normal, self-defeating, self-owning, Western clown clownarch policies. Anyways, most presidents, unlike Donald Trump, who loaded up the Oval Office with gold trinkets, stick to traditional dignified furnishings. The place is tasteful but discreet. It hums with a quiet intensity, but it's not Ronnie. The power is great, and I don't want to hear any more of this. Like, stop cheering for the American. Oh my God, this is scary for me. Ronald Reagan. That's us. Well, actually, Ronald Reagan's not. He's more scary for like boomer Democrat liberals and everyone that was at the No Kings. No, I'm just kidding. That's terrifying. It's like what if America, like has a Republican in charge? That's the most terrifying thing ever for a lot of people. And that's not but it's like this is too much claptrap. But anyways, that's all gone now, turned into dust and rubble in a couple of extraordinary days. Okay, actually, let me read this part. So, guests traveled a corridor between wood panels with doors leading off to office complexes for the First Lady. Walls that soaked up history kept alive the aura of Jacqueline Kennedy and Nancy Reagan. Did the walls soak up the millions of dead Native Americans' blood? Did the walls soak up all of the slaves that built Wall Street's sweat and tears? Right? Are the scars on the whipped backs of the slaves like so much poltergeist skin like sewed into the walls? Like is that what the furniture is made out of? Because you're not slaves. Do you know black slaves? The black 25 cents, 10 cents an hour paid Washington D.C. mostly African American prisoners. That's who makes the White House furniture. So like, is there African skin? Is there African blood and sweat like inside of the floorboards of the White House? It's just like it's like Ash versus Evil Dead. If he opens up the floor, is there gonna be like a horde of like this like undead lich white men? They're called American presidents and American ruling class. Is the CIA gonna come spooking its way out and start and wearing the literal flesh and skin of dead Africans that built everything and inside like the DC? Is that what sounded? Is Thomas Jefferson's 160 enslaved people and his 14-year-old sexually abused black girl that Thomas Jefferson, right, great American hero, is his spirit in there too? Right, just like the ghost of Christmas, ghost of America past, like Jacob Marley, just like right carrying his slaves' chains around, right? Is that who's in the White House? I mean, I think that's what's in the White House. It's a very scary place. It's terrifying place, full of war criminals, like Kennedy, Trump, Clinton, Obama, and all the Bushes. Very scary place. That's all gone. I'll turn it to dust and rubble in a couple of extraordinary days when demolition teams ripped apart the East Wing on the orders of Trump, who is itching to build his $300 million ballroom in its place. Because one thing I'm like, obviously spending $300 million when the United States is like leaving 40 million people to not be able to afford their food because of the food stamps. The Affordable Care Act, which is going to increase healthcare costs by, I forgot, potentially doubling people's healthcare costs or many thousands of dollars going up. If that isn't dealt with. And then while they're doing that, they're going to spend $300 million to build this ballroom. I mean, it's kind of wild. It's kind of scary. That's a little bit horrifying, but and of course angering. But like the White House was not a great place. The any of its wings. It was the seat of global. I mean, I talk about it all the time on the stream, but it's like it is the seat of a global empire that has caused the suffering, death, and mass immiseration of billions, the whole entire Earth, under a global imperial capitalist system. So, like, it's not a great place. It should not be celebrated. I mean, it is celebrated in the United States, by the corporations and the billionaire class that run the media and the education system and the culture. But in a global and a historical sense, it should not be celebrated. So like people if people had sense, they would be cheering for this. But a lot of people are internally to the United States just upset that Donald Trump is taking down some kind of great piece of heritage. This is like the hotel in The Shining, but worse, right? Right. The White House is a haunted house. It is a horror house. Right. This is the place where President Obama ordered countless extrajudicial assassinations, including of American citizens like Anwar al-Awlaki. Without the people are getting upset. Oh my God, Trump is doing unprecedented things. He's doing illegal things like just sending missiles to blow up innocent people off the coast of Venezuela in boats. And President Obama, he did this at large scale. He already done that. That was horror. That was a horror, right? And that's what. Then the White House is where he lived, right? When he just started blowing up innocent people. When he launched the war in Libya, that was a horror story. Ask the Libyans how that went when they were bombed into the Stone Age, and things got so abhorrent and so absolutely obliterated, and that the U.S. and the NATO installed warlords that were basically brought back slave markets and brought total chaos and mass death and destruction through that country, and they exported that all over Africa, including to places like Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger, which have now brought revolution and socialism and African liberation, but that horror was brought by Obama from the White House. That killed countless thousands of people there, and has immiserated he has helped immiserate the whole continent. It's just one example. That's not even Trump. But anyway, so this like celebration of this place, like some kind of holy, shrine of justice and liberty and sanctity or some nonsense. This is just anyway. But you know my take on that. But anyway, so I just want to, because this article is gonna, a lot of people are talking about, oh my gosh, it's so terrible that our beautiful White House is being wrecked. That whole place should have been torn. That should have never been built by the slaves that built it. Why were there slaves in a free country, right? That place never should have been built. The West Wing should have never been made, because there never should have been a U.S. empire to launch the war in Iraq into another million-person killing war. There never should have been an American empire to launch the Vietnam War into another war to kill 1 million and poison with Agent Orange and burned countless children to death. What are we celebrating this thing for? Anyway, I'll stop going off about that. But this, anyway, okay. So everyone says the same thing. Okay, but long story short, so the President of the United States is wrecking the White House, and it's costing a lot of money. He's going to build his own vanity. He's going to build his vanity wing of his new ballroom, and that it's pretty silly. I mean, to be honest, it's frivolous. You definitely get the sense that from what I understand, like Trump has not really been happy with having to stay in the White House. It is an old building. It's a government building. It's not a brand new billionaire's hotel. Like Trump he's a real estate guy. He's used to just, building or having be built or staying in fancy new hotels. The White House is an old place, right? It's kind of like, hey, when you have a system that's privatized, that focuses on privatizing everything, right? Privatizing and giving everything to the private, corporate capitalist billionaire sector, and taking it out of the public, right? Then the public spaces, which includes the White House, is not going to be as well kept up, right? It's part of the deal. It's like it's like the public parks, and the public spaces, the public national parks that are completely unfunded right now. There's just trash. There's like Oreo cookies, wrappers. There's like Halloween jack-o'-lantern. There's candy corn packages. Just right, people having parties in national parks, and there's no one to clean it up because there's no funding for it. And but that also goes for like the public. The White House is a public space, even though the president technically has to live there. but it is a public building. It's not a private building, right? And so it's also not meant to be a brand new fancy hotel. But Trump has never liked it because he said it's old, it's dusty, doesn't have all the nice new amenities. I don't want to have to live there. He's the only one that's really complained about it, right? Because he's a billionaire real estate guy. But Obama, Clinton, Bush, these are just like, they're not just regular people, but they are not billionaires. So that's where Trump is a little bit different. Like he's a little bit he's not as much just a puppet like basically all Western politicians that are just puppets for oligarchs, and they can enter the higher echelons of the capitalist, completely unjust system that controls the U.S. and all Western countries that are totally corrupt plutocracies and oligarchies that are not democracies. But Trump does have some independent. He has more independence than a lot of these other entities because he is a billionaire. He has the capital that gives him the votes in the non-democratic, not one person, one vote, $1, one vote system, the United States and the collective West have, right? And so, because like Obama or Bush wouldn't do this, they don't do this. Biden wouldn't and didn't do this. Because they have they do what their funders tell them, right? That's what Biden has always done. He's just whatever the confluence of corporations, which are not all the corporations and the rich, which are not all 100% aligned. I think I pointed out last week. Because they have different areas they're invested in. They don't all necessarily agree, but whatever is the closest consensus, Biden and politicians like him, just completely spineless, complete professional liars and grifters and professional sellout, just amoral, empty ghost zombie people. Like Biden literally is a brain dead mummy. He's like basically embalmed at this point. So he just carries out whatever policy the wealthy that pay him, give him the fancy lunches, take him out with fine dining through lobbyists, whatever they say, he does it. The same thing for AOC, the same thing for Bernie, for all these people. That's just what some of them act. They have different parts to play. Some of them play conservatives, and they say, "Well, we got too many immigrants, and there's guns. We need our guns, gods, and gays, and we got to handle that. And then we got to get rid of all this. I've got to have Christian country again." And then the liberals play their part, which is like, we're going to have women's rights and black and brown rights, and we're all going to be, this is not who we are. I have a dream, just like, Martin Obama King Jr., Senior, I forgot, I don't know, right? So we have all these actors that pretend like they care, that want about, minorities, women, people of color, queer people, preserving science and all this stuff. And the other side, you have people that, they sell beef and dairy and hydroxychloroquine and Christianity of various kinds, and but usually Protestant. And then, we're going to make America safe and secure, blah, 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 shut the borders down. They're all actors. They don't, believe anything that they say. They're literally just paid. And whatever they're paid to do by the various corporations in various amounts. Some Republicans tend to be paid a little bit more to promote, again, the Texas beef. California is vegetables, more for Democrats. Texas and Republicans, oil, drilling, and a little more a certain kind of farm products like corn. That's a little more grown in red areas, and then Democrats talk about biotech and a little bit more renewable energy. They don't really do any of that because renewable energy is not going to be compatible with a global imperial capitalist system when everyone's liberated with the sun and the wind that shines everywhere. But anyway, so long story short, there's a fight. Now this is coming to the Capitol shutdown topic, right? There is a fight between the Democrats and the Republicans over the Affordable Care Act, right? I mean, they're fighting over like whether he should or shouldn't break the White House down and build a new wing in it. But, it ultimately, it doesn't matter because Democrats and Republicans they don't run the United States, right? They're just figureheads. They are finger puppets on the hands of the puppet masters, So they're irrelevant. What the Democrats and Republicans want doesn't matter, right? Trump is just doing what Trump is one of the puppet masters. I'm the biggest one right now. I'm gonna smash this house. That's how America was built, right? They didn't ask the black people, brown people, and women if they wanted to be slaves and servants to rich white men when they built the White House, right? And they're not asked now. They don't care, right? There's no democracy in America. Like I already pointed out last week. I'm not going to point it out. I'm going to show that again. So Trump is just, when he breaks the wing down, Trump is acting as an oligarch. I don't like the way this house looks. I'm in charge. If you don't like it, stop me, right? That's the way America actually works, right? It's like if you don't want it's like if you don't want this giant fossil fuel plant that's going to put poisonous gases out into Memphis to power Grok's AI, will become a billionaire and then stop it, because the United States federal government, the states and the federal government are not going to do anything to stop the people that actually control the system, right? And the Democrats, Republicans are, they're talking about how horrible this is and, oh my gosh, it's so gross. And I'm not saying it's good. It's not good. It's a waste of money. But whether it's good or bad, whether it's moral or not, whether it's destroying America's heritage or sprucing up a old ass haunted house, it's just irrelevant, right? It is how America operates, and the White House, that's the way America operates right now. And maybe one day America won't be a imperial capitalist plutocracy, but that's the way it is now. So we got to deal with that. It's actually irrelevant. What happens to the White House is irrelevant. It is a sideshow. Partially, it's just I think Trump does want to impress Xi Jinping next time Xi Jinping comes to America, if he ever does. That's part of what he wants to do, because Trump is he's a billionaire oligarch real estate developer. He aspires to be respected by the leader of an actual civilization like China's leader. Now the way he thinks that Xi Jinping got there is by what the West says China is, which is an authoritarian, despotic place where they beat you up if you don't say I love Xi Jinping and I love Chinese Communist Party 3 times a day, every day. That's not how it works there, but that's what Trump thinks. And so part of it is he's crushing the White House, or he's smashing the East Wing to make it bigger, so that he thinks that he can make it more impressive, so that he can try to reach parity with greater countries and greater civilizations than the United States, right? Which America is starting to admit that. Did you know actually The Economist recently published an article, and so did the Rand Corporation. There's a study, I think, that there's definitely a Rand Corporation. They're like the U.S. military Pentagon think tank, one of the premier ones that analyzes the future military geopolitical strategy for America. They're actually advising against even trying to contain China. They're actually the United States military major think tank is now saying we have to appease China on Taiwan and try to help. We have to tamper down on Taiwan's attempts to get independent. That's completely 180 change of just a couple years ago, even a year ago. They're saying we cannot even. They're now admitting the U.S. is now the oligarchy, the Western oligarchy as well by extension, is admitting they cannot even try to compete with China. They've lost. It's over. So Trump is actually trying to gain favor with China and Xi Jinping, because he knows that the United States and the West is has-beens. Some of the West, about 40%, haven't admitted it to themselves. Some of them are unaliving themselves, but that's it. That's what's it's already over. So and so part of the Capitol being rebuilt is because Trump, in his mind, this is going to help him to seem like a more serious person with a bigger, fancier ballroom, right? Beautiful displays, beautiful swimming pool, beautiful golf course, right? Beautiful. That's what his military parade was about. I'm not saying that's going to succeed. I'm not saying that the military parade was good. I'm not saying he's good. But that's what he thinks, right? So Trump sees the White House. I think he sees the White House as a dusty old the White House is scary to Donald Trump because it's old, it's dusty, it's out of date, it's not a nice new hip building with the modern amenities. It doesn't have beautiful fountains. It doesn't have a brand. It doesn't look like the new Chinese buildings. It doesn't, right? Now, of course, China doesn't like have like they have their own historical buildings too, right? White House is a historical building, but he just doesn't. He thinks that Trump's biggest fear is being inferior, right? His hands being too small, him not being man enough, him like not being a big shot in New York that has always looked down on him, despite him being the poster boy for Reaganomics and the making Wall Street and capitalism cool again after the post after the tar and feathering of Wall Street post 1929 stock crash, the Great Depression, right, and the New Deal era where there was a 90% tax rate and on the rich and being a banker, bankers are actually literally like paraded in courts, and they were like tomatoes and rotten vegetables were thrown at them, right? And during the Pecora trials in the 30s, actually it became really uncool to be a wealthy, rich banker, corporate CEO, somebody like Trump. And then he was the one who brought it back in the 80s when the capitalists resurged and figured out how to retake power in the United States, and social and cultural power as well. Trump was the social cultural lightning rod, like Elon Musk for the teens. Anyway, and Trump is back for that. So Trump, but he still thinks of it in terms of image and like thinks in terms of trying to what he calls the art of the deal. But anyway, I should probably stop trying to psychoanalyze him. But long story short, it's kind of this event is kind of aside from being it is basically a waste of money, because Xi Jinping is not going to be impressed by any of this stuff. You're not going to impress anybody. Donald Trump will live in a nicer, he'll have a bigger, fancier space to live in, I suppose. But other than that, it's basically a distraction from the total, utter collapse of the United States, the capitalist system, the Western world, and the rise of the global South, which the imperialist North is ignoring because they need to fix their system, and they rather just like think about anything other than their responsibilities and just showing up to a No Kings once every 6 months to do a Hillary Clinton celebrated Hillary Clinton rubber stamped Christy Walton billionaire funded anti-oppression action, whatever that means. It's I think Margaret Kimberly had a good take on that on the Jamal Thomas show, that said basically it's just having a spectacle once every so many months is not do actual the mass based grassroots organizing and work to actually make real change of any kind in the world. And I think there's been a lot of takes on No Kings since last week. I did a video on it last week. And like the scary thing for a lot of people want change. And I said, it's not necessarily bad to go to one of those actions because, people are unhappy with things. They aren't happy with Trump, the administration's policies, ICE, all the many things that are happening. And obviously it's not invalid to be unhappy with that, what has happened over the last, several months. But they also don't want to actually take the hard, serious, less fun actions that will be needed, right, to correct the errors of the United States. And when you say no kings, as I pointed out, like there always were kings. They never stopped being kings in the United States, but they're just the kings with dollar signs. They're the kings of oligarchy. They're kings. Everywhere where there's capital, there is a king, right? Everywhere where there is a capitalist, a capital power, right? Whether that's a corporation, a billionaire, some confluence of them, special interests, there's already a king there, right? So that can't be addressed by having a party for 2 hours in designated areas, celebrated by the police, high-fiving the police. I talked about that last week, so I won't waste too much time on that. But I won't spend too much time on that. But okay, so back to the shutdown. Let me see where we're at now. See, government shutdown. Okay, so the Pentagon used 130 million to donation. This is an interesting update. 130 million donation from anonymous Trump friend to pay military members. He's actually known now, but the donation was made on the condition that it be used to offset the cost of service members' salaries and benefits. Chief Pentagon spokesman Sean Parnell said in a statement to CNN, adding that the money was accepted under the department's General Gift Acceptance Authority. The move marks a striking departure from government procedure for funding the military, which traditionally relies on public funds appropriated by Congress, and it raised immediate questions about the donor's identity and motivations for cutting the 9-figure check to the government. The 130 million donation is unlikely to make a meaningful impact towards covering salaries of roughly 1.3 million active duty military troops, netting out to about $100 per service member. Congressional appropriations on both sides of the aisle said Friday that they were seeking more information from the administration about the specifics of the donation, but had yet to receive any explanation. Democrats also raised concerns about its legality, contending that the Gift Acceptance Authority, cited by the Pentagon, only permits gifts for a handful of specific purposes, such as funding military schools, hospitals, cemeteries, or to benefit wounded troops, or the dependents of those injured or killed in the line of duty. Donations can also face additional tighter restrictions if they come from foreign governments or organizations. Using anonymous donations to fund our military raises troubling questions of whether our troops are at risk of literally being bought and paid for by foreign powers. Well, I mean, that's a good way to try to get more military funding and try to make more claim that, well, they're gonna have a harder time claiming China is doing everything because they've already been defeated. I mean, what they're going to do? They're going to claim the president of Venezuela. Maduro donated $130 million. That's why we have to blow up Venezuela, right? Because that's the only wars America can win. Or America thinks they can win a war against Central South America because they can't win in the Middle East and they can't win against China. Absolutely no possible way. So that's what they're doing in Central South America, is the last adventure of America before Vietnam War 2.0 is itself. And it self-destructs, and then communist, socialist, Asian, African, and South Americans all invade through Mexico and Canada at the same time, and America is split up into tiny little bits of, balkanized, ongoing revolutionary process, and then all the capitalists have to go through the gulag. No, that's not going to happen. But Trump is literally taking money from anonymous friends and then donating it to the military. The Democrats do this all the time. Bankers like Jamie Dimon took $4 million and stuck it in the pension funds of police officers during Occupy Wall Street to say, hey, I pay your salary. It's really about making a point. Like, I pay your salary, and here's a gift, just to put the icing on the cake. Beat up all those college students and impoverished working class and poor people of the 99% at Zuccotti Park. Because I'm the banker. I'm the rich capitalist. I pay the police. You're my police. Do what I said. Get out there. Don't keep those poor, pissed off, anarchists, communists, socialists, just broke, angry, college kids with multiple 100,000 student debt while we're getting trillions in bailouts. Keep them at bay, because that's what you do, right? The police are the domestic enforcers of a capitalist oligarchy. The U.S. military are the enforcers globally of a capitalist, imperialist oligarchy. So Donald Trump knows theater. He knows the working the crowd, right? And part of this is a message. Obviously, it's not going to make a big dent. $100 per soldier, that's not going to pay for $100 per soldier is not going to pay for the soybeans that they're going to need to eat to survive tomorrow. Because they're not going to have any food for, a good 25% plus of American soldiers are have to regularly go to food banks. So $100 is not going to pay for the hyperinflated, McDoubles that their family going to eat for the next 5 days if they can get a hamburger. What the hell is $100 going to do? But you know what that does do? It does send a message that says, it's my military. This is my military. This is Trump and Friends' military. We're going to take over this military, and then we're never leaving office, and we're going to start a civil war. within. We're going to start the war from within, and we're going to attack liberals. We're going to attack communists, socialists, Antifa, anarchists, anyone who is against Donald Trump, universities, military, the blue states. Bannon just said Trump is never leaving office publicly. And when they said, "What do you mean he's never leaving office? He's gonna have a third term." He can't have a third term. That's against the Constitution. And Steve Bannon said, Trump is sent by God. He's divine. He is divine providence. So you gotta control the military. If Donald Trump wants to take control of the United States and never leave office, he's gonna have to have big chunks of the military that he can have on his side, that he can get inside of his coalition. And I'm not joking about that. He's not joking about that. But liberals think that, we're going to vote him out. We're going to dance on the street and then we'll vote him out in 2028. He's not going anywhere. He didn't want to go anywhere last time. He cooed the country. Right? And that's another horror that the West, the moderate white liberal don't want to remember. You have an authoritarian regime. The whole thing has always been authoritarian. And now it's going to be, but it's been fascism for black, brown, and indigenous people in the global majority. Donald Trump is fascism could actually impact white people. And it's not going to be it's not going to be a silent tyranny. It's going to be, there isn't going to be any more elections. I'm taking over now. It's me, it's Trump, it's MAGA. And white liberals, he just invaded upper class Chicago today. Everyone said, how could anyone we're having a pleasant walk and a stroll through the beautiful communities of upstate or the very wealthy and peaceful, tranquil Chicago exurbs, right? Where we're having a nice parade, we're having a nice stroll down the street, right? There's no black people in our streets, right? These are all people that went to No Kings last week, right? The wealthy upper class of Walmart that are having a company party with the poor people in their cities, right? Did you know there's actually 99% white people, even in Chicago? I was talking to somebody who was at it, or somebody who was was around it. He went and looked at it. It's like every single person in Chicago, which is 70% not white. 70% white, almost every single person, just like a tiny spattering. They were all like old, wealthy white people in Chicago at No Kings. That was a really damning statistic for me. I was like, in Hawaii, it's the same thing. It was 99% white. Hawaii is 75% not white. It's brown, it's Pacific Islander, Hawaiian, Samoan, Tahitian, and the No Kings. When I looked at it again, it's like, what the hell is this? Everyone's flying American flags. If any anti-oppression, whether that's like housing justice in Hawaii, environmental, stopping environmental desecration and toxification, where the U.S. military drops bombs and spills fuel at Red Hill. Whenever there's actual big scale serious actions organizing in Hawaii, there's Hawaiian flags. If any, there's Hawaiian flags, Hawaiian solidarity flags. There's environmental justice. There's no American flags flying, right? The only flag at No Kings was American flags. It's old, wealthy white people and American flags. There might have been one is Israeli flag. What is happening here? It's surrounded by cops. Everyone's just hugging the cops, having the best grand old time with the cops. So, and so those people are being terrorized. The upper class white liberals are also being terrorized. Now, of course, if you are a Hispanic, you're not, a brown, black person, you are obviously being terrorized by Trump's ICE soldiers, his private army. But they're not limited to that, right? And this is where it freaks out Democrat, white liberal, and the upper class white population too, that are not the ones that are not Republican, Trump, or not even just Republican. They're even Republicans against Trump. Even some Christians have said, because Trump is doing all these things that are increasingly directly more fascist, that are in contradiction with some less extreme Republican Christian views, right? So there's even Republicans against Trump now. Some of them have come out more directly. So, but it doesn't matter. Like so if many Republicans are siding with him, they're standing in lockstep. They're goose stepping with him. But anyone that is on his bad list, whatever your wealth, whatever your color, whatever your part of the Democrat Republican spectrum you fall on, you will be put down. You under assault. There's nothing to stop him either. The Democrat, Margaret Kimmy also pointed out that the Democrats, you created the haunted house, you created the scary house, right? By failing to fulfill the requests of the people when they said we need to not be giving trillions of dollars to banker bailouts to the ultra rich after 0809 crisis, just as one example, by actually making healthcare affordable. The Affordable Care Act hasn't made healthcare affordable. 80% of the population still wants Medicare, and it's only gotten worse for the last 10 years. People who actually use the Obamacare system said it's like really hard to use. It's broken. It can give you like worse care than if you get it employer. And if you get employer-based care, it's also absolutely abominable. Like people are paying, it's like $27,000. I forget the average healthcare cost just has gone up again for another year in a never-ending increase in healthcare costs. It's been like the top issue for decades and decades. Nothing has moved the needle on that at all. Right? It's just talk. It's all talk, and it's all talk, and it's more talk. Right? So, and the Democrats expanded wars, healthcare, housing, food. Basic needs. Everything has gone up. They've done nothing. They've done absolutely nothing. And then they committed a live stream Holocaust 2.0. And they created Trump 1, and then they created Trump 2. Hillary Clinton was an abominable candidate. She was. She blamed everything on like Russia attacking her and then putting Trump in power. It's just she was a terrible freaking candidate. Like Obama was a good liar and he's a good showman. So he was more electable. But the Democrats chose to run Hillary Clinton because that's part of the decrepit, dying Democratic Party. It was never, it was always a horrible party, but it was even running really terrible candidates like Hillary Clinton, and she lost because she has really poor presence. She's a really despicable person. She defended child sexual abusers early in the 90s. It's part of how she got to where she is. She's like has this horrible cackling laugh about things like when they unalived, when they destroyed the Ibrahim Traore, the African Revolution of the 2010s. That was Libya and Gaddafi. That was where they were giving healthcare, housing, free university, free healthcare, and free housing to people, and they're trying to build Africa up. And Hillary Clinton, with the United States and the U.S. and European imperial powers, invaded and destroyed Libya, but also destroyed the hope of liberating 1 billion Africans, right? And people around the world saw that. The Putin, that person that everybody says, it's like we have the person that one of the reasons why Hillary Clinton was really had it in for Russia is because Russia was correctly pointing out, you went in and invaded and destroyed and bombed this country into oblivion, and also you hit Iraq, and how can you be doing these kinds of things? And that was just annoying and frustrating. And also, we want all your resources and stop supporting, because the thing with Russia was actually supporting African countries that were resisting the Western imperialists, like including Libya. They still are. That's what the part of the Alliance of the Sahel States is built with direct military and economic support there. But anyway, long story short. So, but all of those wars and all those interventions, America didn't ask for the United States to waste all that money and resources trying to bomb and blow up Africa and keep them all buried under IMF debt traps and not do anything for Americans, right? People didn't ask, people just wanted I can say this because, I will say, I fully admit that, like, I watched a bunch of hope and change videos from Obama in the 2008 year. And, that was the last time I ever believed in American so-called democracy. None of the Obama promises were fulfilled. Everything got worse. Nothing was done. He didn't listen to Occupy Wall Street. He ordered the police and the military police and the bulldozers to basically demolish Occupy. He just ignored everything that they said. Right? And he said, well, at least there's a black guy in charge. And then it was just immiseration for 8 years. And that created Trump. And you put a horrible candidate in charge, a cackling war criminal witch, not the good kind, like the Wicked Witch of the West, like Margaret Thatcherite. Hillary Clinton even looks like her. She dresses the same. And you created the Frankenstein that is Trump by putting that. And then you did it again with Biden, who just said, I'm going to be a brain dead tool of corporations. And I'm going to commit the worst crime possible for 2 years straight, live streamed dead babies all day. And then you created Trump 2.0. So, I mean, anyways. So, and then it's like, well, and if we like, well, how could any of this have happened? The Democrats want to come out and be like, Christy Walton, right? Hillary Clinton, Kamala Harris. Is the No Kings rally is just a Democratic corporate insiders freaking brunch. That's all it is. It's a brunch with some dinosaur costumes and dancing. I want to look at it. What the hell is this? Right? Kamala Harris is probably the only black woman at the one she went to, surrounded by a bunch of white people that would say, I'm not racist because I voted for Obama. Just like Jordan Peele's Get Out movie. Like what hope and what you all kings, Anyway, okay. I already talked about that. So, but that's kind of recap. But that's part of why the government is shut down. The government is shut down. Well, that's not why the government shut down, but like the government being shut down is something that happens when the oligarchy needs to, kind of demolish more public services, terrorize and threaten the American citizens with the cutting off, to chastise and just make a point to beat up on government workers and just the population, right? Because when the government shut down, nobody is being paid. The last government shutdown was 35 days. So we still have still until November 2nd, it's 35 days, right? People are suffering. Money isn't being paid. It's another wealth transfer from average working class people, because most of the government employees are working class people, to the elites, right? Because if you're not paying a salary, right? Or even if you're like threatening people with like, oh my God, what if I lose my job? Oh my God, like, what if I can't afford this bill? It's just trying to push as many Americans to the breaking point and to terrorize them and to demolish psychologically. It's a psychological warfare on average working American, and it also is taking some of their wealth. It's during the shutdown, all kind of secret backdoor deals are happening. A lot of I gotta go get an actual article on it. I was like reading a few of them. I probably should have brought them all up, but this is all kind of like wheeling and dealing inside, or like getting rid of certain institutions, rearranging, letting go. There's like 100,000 people were recently just they were like asked to resign. They're no longer working in the United States. That's a bunch of those are less salaries that are going to be paid by the U.S. federal government. It is like trimming down on all the government services. Now, I'm not a big fan of every single branch of the U.S. government, like I already said. But like, if the National Science Foundation, they're talking about NASA just absolutely being eliminated. So all of America's space race, all of America's, the moonshot, whatever moonshot it was supposed to have, that would be completely out the window. If that happened. I don't think that has happened yet, but so all of those, so like the shutdown is all theater because oligarchs and corporations own all branches of the U.S. government. The purpose of that is to make people worry, like, what if I never got my food stamps again? What if I never got what if my Affordable Care Act runs out and I suddenly got to pay another $1,000 a month for healthcare, or for my parents, or me or my mom's cancer medication? Suddenly it's becomes so amazingly unaffordable. Like it is a what do you call it? The Labor Force Discipline Act. And also makes it look like the Democrats and Republicans and their fans can all believe that their side is fighting really hard, and it creates a big circus, right? It's a breadless circus because there's not going to be any food stamps for anyone to buy their bread, whether that's whole wheat or white bread. But like at least you get this. There's a big entertaining fiasco where everyone is just screaming at each other. Now the thing is, the last government shutdown happened right around the time when government officials, especially like the workers for the flight traffic controllers, started talking about what if we just started calling in sick and then not showing up for work, right? And then I think it was like LaGuardia, a couple of East big East Coast airports couldn't operate at all because people started listening to that. They said, yeah, let's just mass stick in. It wasn't quite a general strike, but it was moving towards a general strike. Which, I mean, obviously, if you could get a general strike in America, in Bolivia, there was an 85% general strike with construction workers, doctors, nurses, lawyers, basic, landscapers, I mean, everything, you name it. 85% of the entire country of Bolivia went on general strike. Engineers, technicians, teachers, everyone just was like, the whole country was shut down. The highways weren't moving. Nothing was moving at all in Colombia. Why? Because the U.S.-backed imperialist coup, where Elon, who wanted lithium there, he said, "We'll coup whoever we want, deal with it," on Twitter to Venezuela, to the Bolivians, and he installed a fascist, neoliberal economist behind a fascist Jean Añez administration to obtain the lithium there, right? And so the country went into I talked about this before, I know, but they went into a serious for about a year turmoil and havoc. Dozens of people were shot in the street dead with live ammunition from the military, right? The fascist-controlled, U.S.-backed Bolivian regime that they installed through a violent coup, and then that was undone by a general strike, and then Gina Añez was pushed out after the strike. When it only took about a week, right? If every single American, right? America is not quite as Boots Riley and Chris Smalls are having this back and forth. There are some various black socialists and communists were going back and forth on that. We're like, should we have a general strike? Can we have a general strike? Are we organized enough to hold a general strike? If the entire United States, the part of the thing is this is a psychological warfare. The rich are, the capitalist class is imposing psychological warfare on, and obviously economic warfare on the working class and then the underclasses, right? If the underclasses all said, well, what if we all exercised? What if we all just stopped working, right? Then that would be a salvo back in the to my mind, that would at least be some kind of exercise of some kind of willpower and action and some kind of agency in the world by the working classes. So, I mean, it wouldn't necessarily, it could be chaotic, it might not work. But I mean, even the fact that it happened would suddenly give them pause, right? It's kind of like that is actually what the Western imperial structure responds to. The capitalists don't respond to any talk or any, they respond to their money. They respond to being militarily, physically killed, physically harmed, right? Like the rich, Roosevelt's friends in the upper crust of America in the early 20th century were afraid of dying from guillotines and being shot by angry farmers, because angry farmers, angry industrial workers were killing judges. They were killing rich people in the country mostly. They needed private security to defend themselves, like Pinkertons. They needed their own. The U.S. was basically in a limited civil war during the early 20th century, in the Great Sarath era, in the rise of the communist socialist parties. They would lynch judges. If a judge auctioned off a farm for a wealthy New York banker, the farmers, the communists together with their they would all come together and they would kill the judge, and then they would stop that farm from being taken by the bank. And then the banks and the wealthy of the coasts would have to send out their private militaries to try to fight and put that back down. The Koch brothers, the David and his brother, rest in hell, the one that died, right? The dad actually wanted total civil war in the United States, so the capitalists would, like they backed in Russia, like the United States and the collective West capitalists backed in the Russia, between the white and the red army, they backed the white army to kill all the communists and to establish the power and the dominance of dollar and the dominance of the privatized corporate upper class, aristocratic mopheads, the same people that built America, white aristocratic land owning, mostly British at the beginning of America's long horrible history. So. And so it's like, obviously the United States working class was more organized in the 30s and in that time period. But it like No Kings is a show that 7 million people are not happy. Those people are not, but that's not that they have no demands. They didn't take any particular action. It didn't interrupt anything at all. Business as usual. It was working with the police. It was working with. They're all part of the imperial corporate class. No Kings was actually a show of corporate power. Arguably, it's more of a show of corporate power. It says corporations can get 7 million people to jump whenever they say jump because that's who paid for it. Right? The No Kings organizers are literal Zios. Christy Walton of the freaking Walmart Walton multi-billionaire family, one of the richest families in the world, right? And a handful of and a whole bunch of other. There's several other powerful corporate billionaire and Democrat, insider Democrat funders, not just some random, Joe Bag of Donuts from Los Angeles who happens to vote Democrat and his mom practiced Santeria. It's not like some random member of the Sublime band. I don't know why I thought of that, but it's so the No Kings rally is a show of the corporations. It's partially a show that people are upset in America, some of them, right? But mostly it's a show that corporations can get 7 million upper class rich white people from upstate New York and Orange County to come into cities and party for 2 hours, right? Literally the Walton family was there. Like that, did you know? Like one of the No Kings was hosted inside a Walmart. It was like at a Walmart parking lot. Like Walmart, it was basically a Walmart company party. It's like, okay, everybody. We're all gonna. But most of it didn't involve the black and brown and poor inner city average Walmart worker. It was just a Walmart. It was a Walmart corporate executive only party, basically. It's executives and like upper management Walmart party inside a Walmart parking lot. Anyways, okay, so so that's kind of scary, So when we talk about Walmart is not going to stop the Affordable Care Act, and they don't care about people's ability to afford food. Okay, they care a little bit about the ability to afford food, but if it's a choice between Americans having seriously affordable food, housing, and sovereignty and democracy, the Walmart is not going to be there. Walmart, right, and the other corporations of America, that is what America works for, are not going to be there for your affordable care. The Affordable Care Act, this is another thing I want to point out. The Affordable Care Act is not about affordable care, right? The Affordable Care Act is not about getting Americans affordable care. The Affordable Care Act is a token Band-Aid on the horror of the privatized American capitalist healthcare system. That's a universal wealth extraction and a universal death care system. People live shorter, less healthy years, and they die sooner in proportion to the total amount spent than any other country in the world. Certainly any other developed country in the world. And that horrible, that speaking of Halloween, that horrible system of the U.S. healthcare system was not fixed by the Affordable Health Care Act, right? Like the United States number one issue, right? Or the one issue that even across the aisle has massive demand, right? Democrats and Republicans, like 80% want Medicare for all. Right? They don't want Affordable Care Act. The Affordable Care Act is woefully insufficient. It's a joke. Right? Bernie Sanders talks about it, but Bernie Sanders' job as his part of the American democracy theater is to pretend like there's some kind of hope and so keep staying in the Democratic Party. So he's like one of the most Sanders and Obama are the two most toxic elements in the whole Western world because they keep people from doing the system. They are the release valve to stop people from going into the systems level change that will actually change anything, right? And the Affordable Care Act, and the subsidies, what it does is the government is giving money, or in general, the government prints money, right, and basically sends money into the pockets of people, or sends it. Ostensibly, it's in your pocket, but it's only there. It's like earmarked, right? Or government subsidized healthcare, where the government earmarks money that goes to you specifically to pay your healthcare costs, or like for example the food stamps, right? Is also another system where the government prints money. J.P. Morgan, the bank, takes 1%, or at least it was taking 1% of every single transaction. That's mountains of money, millions and millions of dollars, to basically take money from the United States government, give it to you so that you can pay for the food. And I'm not saying people shouldn't have help affording food, right? But the ultimate purpose is not so that people get enough food to eat, because people are still not getting enough food in a lot of cases. So 70 million Americans, like in the last 5 years, at some point in the year are malnourished, just on average. It was worse during the beginning of the pandemic. But like this idea that like the food that the SNAP is there so that the United States, because the Democrats or somebody cares about Americans, and now we're gonna get food through that. This is one of those things where I was talking about I have a stream called Controlled Thinning. If I can find that one. It's probably gonna take me a while. Controlled. Oh shit. I'm spelling controlled wrong. There you go. Yeah, so this is a controlled thing. I talk about how capitalism itself doesn't actually capitalism doesn't need to make any particular amount of money, right? Or the system doesn't need, no individual, no corporation needs to make, or ultimately has the goal in the grandest scale, from the highest level, to make any particular amount of money, right? If the goal was to make the most money, the central bank of the United States could print $65 quintillion and then stick that in everyone's pocket. That's how corporations work, right? The Fortune 500, all of the S&P 500, is the vast majority of them are insolvent. They've been insolvent for, like, it's a zombie economy. They've been insolvent for the last over a decade, right? The government prints money. The people that are closest, called the Cantillon effect, to the central banks of the United States or the more privileged higher level banks. The central bank prints the money by typing 90000000000, etc., as many zeros as they want. It could be 10 zeros, it could be 6 zeros, it could be 8 zeros, it could be 15, it could be 65 zeros. Right? It's very easy. Go on your computer and go into a Google search, or go into your Mac, .txt file, and type 1000. How long does it take you to type that? However long it takes you to type that, that's how easy it is to print money in the United States. It's all electrons stored in a very privileged server somewhere, right? So they can print any amount of dollars that they want. They can give that to whoever they want at the top of the capitalist, high priesthood, from the commanding heights of an unjust, definitely king CEO led, but they're kings sitting on thrones of $100 bills. They're kings sitting on thrones of privileged locations within a global capitalist banking and debt-based system, which goes all the way back to the Greeks versus the Persians, which I think I talked about that last week, so I'm going to not recap that again. And so that debt-based system, right, which you control people by increasing the debts and controlling the flows of capital by also controlling the banking system itself, where money is created and destroyed. And so when the central bank prints the money, right, the goal is not to make the goal is not for food to be the goal is not for every American to be fed. The goal is to maximize the control over the American population, including the flows of capital vis-a-vis food. You know what I'm saying? Because it's an alternate system, right? Instead of having this expensive food, instead of the bread costing $5 or $10 too much, right? The inflation, the food price inflation in general has been going up by like out of control levels for a while now, right? Certainly during the last 5 years, but it's going up for a long time. The food prices, right, don't need to be going up 4 or 5, 8, 10%. The eggs never needed to cost $9. The Big Mac doesn't need to be $5 or $6, right? in China, there's like a $1 cup of coffee, and if your price goes above that, like Starbucks coffee, like this Luckin coffee, you can't compete with that. Starbucks basically can't compete with that, and so only the Chinese Luckin coffee and other Chinese competitors are basically the whole market, and they have like very very razor thin margins. But like all the food in China is like that. There's like eggs you can get for like 1 cent. Okay, there's like if you want rice, if you want meat, it's like 7 or 10 times cheaper, right? The average food costs like $100 or less per month per person. It could be like $60 equivalent in their in yuan. But if you were to translate it into at purchasing power parity, they're paying like 7 or 10 times less than Americans. If you really need essentials, the essentials are super cheap. Like imagine 1 cent eggs, right? What's the average egg price? Average egg price in the U.S. Let me just look at the 2025. So it's over $2-3, right? So even if you got a dozen for $2, right? In China, it's literally, it's basically 10 times cheaper, right? So if you get 12 eggs for $2, right? And you can get an egg for like 1 cent, or just, or you can get like, 12 eggs for 12 cents, right? 12 cents versus $2. That's the kind of scales you're dealing with, right? So long story short, so if the United States really wants to, if they really wanted people to be fed, if they really wanted there to be affordable nutrition, that was the priority of any party or the government or the system as a whole, the prices, could just come down. That's the basic, and the prices could just be controlled. They have price controls in China and Vietnam, just as another example, on things like rice, on things like eggs, on things like all the basics, particularly basic needs. I mean, if it's extreme luxury goods that are not necessities, like certain kinds of fancy chocolate, there's less control than that. But like the food that everybody needs and food that everybody consumes on a regular basis, that kind of stuff is all price controlled. Housing is controlled. Everything is controlled. It's not a capitalist system. It's a socialism with a communist party, right? Actually, Japan is having a huge boost in communist party interest, and then it's not become a major competitor to the other parties in Japan, but there's a huge interest in the communist party there now. But anyway, so coming back to the food stamps, when the government prints money and then gives a big chunk of change to these mega financial firms like JP Morgan, right? Just to handle the EBT card transaction processing, right? It's just free money for bankers. That empowers the capitalist class at the top of banks like JP Morgan and other entities like BlackRock, these huge private equity firms. Like they any loan that it gets made, any transaction gets processed, Visa, MasterCard, anything that has to be processed and comes through them increases their total power as they collect a percentage based upon each transaction. These are private capitalist entities, right? So they want the maximum number of stamps coming through. That's one way. But another thing is when this EBT card comes to when you go to use the EBT card to buy $100 worth of 2 loaves of bread and 3 gallons of milk and 2 pounds of beef or vegan grain-based steak and crow paste or whatever you're buying, right? Or you're buying 20 pounds of soybeans because that's all you can afford, right? Because soybeans are dropping in price because they can't sell them to China anymore. So whatever you buy, when you swipe that card, if you're buying a Nestle chocolate, then a whole bunch of money goes to Nestle. If you're buying, whether that's Republican-owned beef corporation beef, that's $10 of beef, that's going to go, a whole bunch of profits going to go to them, right? If you're buying Resnick Halo oranges, that's Californian, or the Wonderful Pistachio, which is funded by Zio, Holocaust doers, basically, in California, the Resnick family, that are also privatizing and hoarding all of California's water as people go thirsty, places go dry, and the rest of it gets hoarded up by giant AI companies. The privatized vegetables, the privatized beef, the privatized milk, or whatever you're buying with that money, they're taking 30, 40, 50 huge profits, right, that they wouldn't get if the United States federal government, the central bank, right, through the SNAP and EBT cards that 40 million people they're not going to have starting November 1st. 40 million people are not going to get their SNAP and supplemental nutrition program benefits. They wouldn't have that $10 to spend on that beef. Or let's just say it's like, I don't know, 5, 6, some ridiculous amount per pound. $10 for a pound of a certain kind of beef. The $6 for milk. Like it was $6 for a gallon of milk. And we go to the store, right? The $6 for a gallon of milk is not gonna be there without that SNAP, right? So now, of course, the company, if people don't have that money, people are gonna start. But at a certain point, if calories, this is what the U.S. military has calculated. If calories drop below a certain number, like 500 something per person per capita in a country, the probability of revolutionary change. This is how they make economies scream to try to get political change inside of countries. The political instability of a country suddenly skyrockets, because when people run out of food, like this is one thing that happened. The French Revolution is because a volcano in Iceland actually erupted and it caused massive crop failures inside of France. Now, there's obviously huge inequality in the Versailles, the Marie Antoinette era had huge inequities. There's always inequities in France, though, arguably, but it was a time of extreme inequity, even for France. But then it was a sudden collapse of access to food because of global rain and weather pattern changes, temperature changes that caused a lack of total food harvest that year. That is what really kicked it into a whole nother level of intensity. And then rich people lost their heads. You might have heard of that. They didn't really succeed at full revolution, but they did have a lot of turmoil, political upheaval. So if the United States let 40 million people actually start to starve, America is already breaking. It's already falling into pieces. The level of political instability and upheaval would suddenly shoot through the roof, right? Also, right, and as I pointed out, the potential let me see the potential for alternative systems to a US oligarchic system start to increase, right? If the population suddenly sees that their government is not supporting them, if people are starting to actually start to starve, like they actually start to starve. Any system, like, I don't know, not necessarily the Black Panthers, but this is what the Black Panthers were doing, which was a left actual revolutionary party in the United States. If they start feeding the masses who need to be fed, when there is no method to get that from the United States government and from the U.S. corporation, the corporations is definitely not going to do it. And if the government doesn't step in to do it, if an alternate power structure, whether that's Black Panthers, whether that's, Hawaii, there's the nation of Hawaii still exists. There's various organizations in Hawaii that feed people when the United States federal government fails to do it, because Hawaii's food costs are through the roof. They're bigger than, Hawaii's food costs are double-digit percentages bigger than any place in the United States, right? Everything is way more expensive in Hawaii because of the United States, not because Hawaii can't access it, because the United States makes Hawaii's food hyper expensive and intentionally has tried to stop us from farming our own food. Hawaii used to grow enough food to feed all of Hawaii and millions of people in California. We grew like 3 times as much food as we needed, and we exported it. The United States empire illegally occupied Hawaii and then forcefully removed all of our food growing, right? And it's tried to keep it that way. Agent Orange was developed in Hawaii partially because it was, thought that it could be used also potentially to disintegrate and kill all Hawaiians' ability to grow food. If anything that could limit the growth of food, and not just in Vietnam, but obviously they use it to kill horrible numbers of people in Asia, the United States has done. But it's also, they want to control food everywhere. That's why Africa is in the revolutionary parts of the Sahel, where they're getting free from the US and France. They're growing vast numbers of food in record amounts that they've never done before. And all kind of different crops. They're growing onions, pineapples, tomatoes, everything that the US and the Europeans said never could have been grown. All their white masters said that Africans could never grow. It's totally a lie. All that's a lie. They could grow whatever they want. It's super abundant sun. They have water, especially if they get the irrigation techniques down. they can do whatever the hell they want. Hawaiians, we could also grow whatever we want. We don't need to be controlled by a United States imperial capitalist illegal occupation. Right? But that's why I said, that's why I have this video called Control Thing. It's not about how much money America makes, right? America doesn't need to make any particular amount of money. Like, America doesn't need to make $5 billion worth of food sales in Hawaii, or $10 billion worth of food sales in Hawaii, or $1 million. America could make no dollars of food sales in Hawaii. The purpose of the global capitalist class. Now, individual capitalists want to make more money, yes. But at the highest imperial level, you want to keep the exertion over you want to keep the per capita and mass scale exertion of the will of those with dollars, right, over the minds and the bodies and the behavior of those without the dollars, and the control over the dollars, right? And the capitalism goes along with the fascism and the white supremacy, the racial, all these other categories. But the capitalism, right, is the power of the dollar to move the caloric energy of human bodies. Dollars are pieces of paper or electrons in a privileged server, but they don't actually do anything in the world. But they are a magic spell that you can cast onto people. But if the spell, in order for the spell to work, people have to, right, again, have to believe, right? They have to believe in the spiritual vitality. That's what George Kennan called it. They have to believe in an idea like America, or in the idea of this physical piece of paper, or that electron in a bank account in a privileged server, or in American Savings Bank, or in Wells Fargo, that has some kind of power, right? Because all it is, it's a bunch of bits and bytes stored in freaking computer software. That's all it is, right? But the interlocking system of capitalism, of the brainwashing, the media, the information and the narrative, and then the terrorizing by going like, what if you lose this? What if you lose that? Oh, we can't afford this. We can't afford that. We can't afford healthcare. We can't afford to do this and that. The language, right? The cost of living, all of that together, right, is about training and brainwashing and conditioning, like rats in a scientist's maze. Is training your mind to operate according to and by the will of those that control the symbols of the dollars, the semiotics of the dollar, and who have the privileged location within a global financialized capitalist system like the United States, right? So the goal is to control Hawaiians and to control the people, the 1.4 million people in Hawaii in particular, right? It's not for the food. The food in Hawaii costs $7 for a gallon of milk, not because people want to make more money through, I mean, yes, people individually, the capitalists want to make more money individually through milk, but the goal is to set the milk price, set the various prices at a particular level so that you can control the population. If it gets too expensive, I mean, not just in Hawaii, anywhere else too, but in Hawaii in particular, because there's an imperial colonial capitalist occupation over a sovereign indigenous Hawaiian socialism with Hawaiian characteristics, as a country under that, right? So it's a more clear contradictions there, because there is an existing system that the U.S. is trying to eradicate our Hawaiian lifeways and our Hawaiian non-capitalist cooperative Aloha Kuleana Pono-based system. But anyway, but in the United States, in everybody's mind, there's this idea that the dollars. So coming back to like how does the SNAP and EBT how is that used to benefit the capitalist class, right? So again, if you really wanted everybody to be fed, you could just drop the price, control the price, set the price of bread to be 50 cents or free or whatever it needs to be, right? Like they do in other socialist countries. Just set the price of rice or get the price down. Have a market-based solution guided by a communist party that does the will of the people to control the price and don't let it get out of hand. And if it gets out of hand, like when drug prices started getting out of hand in China, the people said these are getting out of hand. And the Chinese Communist Party annihilated a whole bunch of executives at the very top level. They said, get these drug prices down, or we're going to have to come in and we're going to force the prices down, because they set cadres of technicians and specialists and enforcers into every single healthcare company in China and just basically forced it down. People said the housing is too expensive, right? The prices of housing, like the prices of food, don't need to be It doesn't need to be $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 for houses. It doesn't need to be $2 million for a house on Maui. It doesn't need to be ever escalating housing prices. That is a choice that is made by the capitalist oligarchy together, because they all basically benefit from that. That it chooses their Democrat and Republican Senate representatives, senators, representatives, congresspeople, presidents, and Supreme Court justices that they all own, that are all handpicked by the other members of the government that they also own, to produce a housing bubble, a pyramid scheme, a dot-com bubble, a AI bubble. These are all produced and manufactured and maintained by the capitalist class for the capitalist class, because that is what is beneficial to that class. The housing prices go up in the United States because that is that is conducive to maintaining the power of the dollar over the minds and the behaviors of the population, right? The price of food going up at the rate that it goes up is conducive to controlling the bodies and the minds of the people of the United States, right? Every single, if the bread, just as another example, right? If the bread, if you're not getting your $500 of SNAP that month, instead of buying 2 loaves of bread, you buy 1 loaf of bread, or you start buying no loaves of bread. Either the capitalist class is going to have to drop the price of that bread, or they're going to suffer some kind of mass revolutionary uprising, and they don't want that. But instead of, if the federal government will print a bunch of dollars, give JP Morgan a cut, give you that extra $500, give a family that extra $500 so that they can increase the total sales of bread or keep the price of the bread up at that particular level, right? Then the whole capitalist class basically is getting subsidized to keep those overinflated prices at that level. The overinflated price, when you keep, like just a counterexample in China, they have razor thin profit margins in China. So if they're selling bread in China, the cost of the bread over the cost to produce is extremely low. It's a tiny, tiny, tiny fraction. In America, it could be massive. It could be even like multiples above what the cost is to produce of any particular product, any particular widget. Cars, bread, houses, right? Definitely houses, right? In China, the house is like $50,000 for a house in like with one year of working at a Foxconn, Huawei, or Apple phone making or Unitree robot making plant, making some advanced product. With 1 year's salary, you can buy an entire house with 1 year, no particular high level college degree, 1 year, and you get to save all the funding. You get to save all the money you make because food, board are free when you work at an industrial production facility in a Chinese city, like in Shenzhen, or a lot of them have moved to like tier 2 cities. So you can save basically the price to buy an entire house after 1 year, right? And the houses are kept at that level because the people have actually asked the government to say, these houses are getting too expensive. These landlords and profiteers are making too much money through entities like Evergrande. Keep that price down. So the government stepped in and basically torpedoed the entire, right, inflation of the housing market, and it actually deflated the housing market so low, right? Even Carl Zhao was talking about it. The Communist Party trying to destroy the housing prices, so they reached such a tiny level, such a nadir, that the entire construction industry, people were in depression. Right? People who are building structures, especially in like tier 1 cities like Shanghai, like Carl has said to one of his cousins, he said, like, the world is ending in China because, nobody's buying houses. Like, houses are going for so dirt cheap. It's so hard. The housing market is terrible. It's just the end of the world. And he said, but he was driving a luxury car, going to eat at luxury restaurants. He had a house. He was fine. It's not like he was suffering. But the housing market wasn't doing that well because it was overheated, and trying to torpedo that and put it all into renewables, solar, electric vehicles, and the most advanced quantum and other advanced computing, regreening entire swaths of desert and building ecosystems and something useful other than just building more housing, because that wasn't useful. People asked for it. So under that socialism with Chinese characteristics, they created a market. They created the economic reality in which the prices of housing were reset to a level that it benefited the masses of the people to the detriment of particular,
there are some people that want to make a lot of capital in China. People make various amounts of money in China, but like the people who were in the housing business, they were not happy with that. And it was too bad, because that is not too bad, landlords. That's what China said. I mean, at least you're not dead. Trying to kill a lot of landlords back in the mid 20th century. In the United States, the housing prices are never going to go down. They're never going to go down. They can't go down. Not by short of the total implosion of the United States. America is not going to last much longer. Capitalism ain't going to last much longer. Again, the Pentagon said we can't contain China. We're over. It's game over, buddy. That's it. Housing prices have to stay up for the duration as long as there's in America, until it breaks into 10 balkanized Americas, basically. I don't know. The housing prices are going to stay up. The food prices are got to stay up. The food prices got to stay up. If America starts, there's no force in the United States, completely corporate capitalist captured government that has any interest whatsoever, right, in actually doing the will of the people, right? The people are massively upset at their capitalist class, the billionaire class. They're upset at all their parties. They do have, it's a lot of people who are like, they don't really care about the life or the continued existence of billionaires on the earth, right? And if the people start to feel like they have some wiggle room to get educated, as part of what AI exists, is to force people to outsource their entire brains and their neurons, along with the ones that haven't been damaged by 6 reinfections of COVID that causes organ, immune system damage, and permanent brain damage through omletification, microthrombosis, et cetera. Just another PSA, mask up, okay? So if your brain hasn't been destroyed by that, AI is partially there so that their consciousness, right? Again, if you want to control the population, a population that is unable to write 5 complete sentences, that's like sophomores in high school apparently are unable to write 5 complete sentences. Well, our kids are like, 10, 11, 12, they're writing entire pages on a regular basis. But if you have people that are outsourcing their entire brains to malfunctioning, broken, malprogrammed stock market pyramid scheme games called AI, right, then those people are not going to be conscious of anything. They're not capable of thinking. They're not critical thinkers, right? They can barely read. They don't want to read. They don't read. And they use AI to decide what they're going to eat for lunch and how to talk to their parents when a family member dies and how to do everything else, right? So anyway, so that's another way you control the population, by make them more controllable, by demolishing their consciousness. You can't be class consciousness. You can't have class consciousness. You can't have consciousness of anti-racism. You can't have anti-imperial consciousness. You can't be conscious of Marx, Lenin, Kropotkin, anarchism, socialism, or anything else. You can't be conscious of anything if your brain is annihilated and your brain doesn't have consciousness. Grok and ChatGPT are conscious for you, right? And ChatGPT will only ever be conscious of whatever the oligarchy wants it to be conscious of, and that'll tell you what you're conscious of, right? So, anyway, so getting back to that. So, if we really want to have a country that isn't filled with the horror of a zombie medical system, right, and the terror of the night of the zombie food stamps, right? Oh my God, what's going to happen when the SNAP expires on November 1st? It will take a total systems, an alternate structure. As part of me is I don't necessarily want people to starve. Obviously we're not rich either. So, we would also be impacted by such a shift in the assistance to those impoverished. I don't want to I'm not saying that people shouldn't get assistance when they absolutely need it, right? But the goal should not be, the United States federal government should print trillions of dollars and give some of those trillions and billions to privileged financial mega firms like JP Morgan, so that they can take a cut of that, so they can give you money to give to corporations, which increases their profits, which, again, every time you get money from when the Central Bank of the United States gives money to JP Morgan, they take 1%, they give you $10 to buy, 9 of those dollars goes to buy bread. The capitalist corporation that owns that bread, right? The Walmart that owns that or benefits from the sale of that Twinkies or that chocolate or that milk or whatever, right? That extra $6, $7, $8 of capital goes straight to the capitalist class, that they can take that money, buy politicians, start wars, lobby for tax cuts. They can take that money and buy ads. They can run your education system and brainwash you into loving capitalism, right? So every single, that's why China has razor thin margins, in part, is because that also keeps the capitalist class from accumulating too much capital power and then trying to challenge the revolutionary government, right? That is for the actual people, right? And so, right, there is some amount of, competition for business, and there's a lot of business, right? But the amount of profit you can make, and also things like Huawei, right? There's actually a mandate in China that every single company in excess of 300 employees has to have some kind of democratic representation of the workers. It cannot be a public, like it cannot be a Fortune 500 publicly traded a company where shareholders, those who have wealth and money, right, can buy stocks, and the vast majority of all stocks are owned by a tiny fraction of the American or the world's population, and definitely the American population, right? It's like 10% of people own 87+% of the stocks or worse, right? So the ability for the millionaire billionaire class to control what happens in workplaces, where their profits go, and to control the whole society. Again, it's about control. It's not necessarily about making money. Is undercut by a law that's basically been instilled into, as far as I remember, that was one of the as a couple, at least about a year and a few months ago, they already had a rule that there has to be some, maybe not total corporatization of all business in China, but there has to be some amount of democratic governance that following the Huawei model, right, or following the success of that. What it does is that, so instead of one Jeff Bezos getting $1 billion of bonuses a year, all employees get 74,000 or 100,000 or 60,000, whatever it is, based upon the revenue the company made. So then that further distributes the power of capital throughout the country through many, many more people, right? And it rewards a lot of people for doing hard work, and because it does benefit China and it benefits the society to have higher quality, better phones and world-class tech like Unitree, the Chinese robots, the Chinese phones, and the world-class EVs that is outselling Ford and every American car company. German car companies all collapsing. It benefits the society to have that. The competition to make better products is not necessarily bad, or to succeed and be good at things. And the meritocracy has positives because people, it moves people, right? People like to compete, and the Chinese, they love competing, as they definitely do. They look at the way they look at sports. They're competitive in like pool and frisbee, anything you could possibly compete in. They're really happy to compete at. But like the competition and of people trying to do the best that they can do doesn't have to have the tapeworm parasite in it, right? Of non-working wealth accumulators, right? That take advantage of the work of all those people through these things called capitalist corporations, companies, etc., right? And so you want, so that's, but teasing that out, having like separating competition from markets, or identifying and distinguishing capital, like markets, competition, accumulation of wealth, right? All because all of that is basically it is all infused into one thing, and nobody really understands it in the West. They don't. As Michael Hudson points out, economics departments in the Western world basically are science fictional classes. They're classes in fantasy. They're not connected to reality. They're just absolute nonsense, right? Whether that's the Austrian school, Chicago school, the liberal economists, the Keynesian, all this stuff is basically bullshit, right? It has to be bullshit because the whole Western world is based on imperial capitalist global evil and wealth plunder and hoarding and mass mind control. So if people learned, right, they're never going to teach in the West how to kill Emperor Palpatine. Emperor Palpatine's school, that's Harvard or all Western college, is never going to teach how to kill Emperor Palpatine. So similarly, but if you can figure out, okay, well, this, that's why they want nobody teaching Marxism and actual analysis of economics and sociology and mass theories of mass change, because that would undo their system. But they don't have that problem in China. Getting rid of all of your parasite class helps with that. So when everybody understands that like we want, or when at least there's not everybody doesn't all see exactly eye to eye, but they understand that like you can control the where if you have a structure, a system that, and you have a government that does respond to the needs and the wishes of the people somehow, not the same as an American electoral bourgeois capitalist democracy. That's actually a plutocracy. They have the whole process democracy that I don't have time to explain. But then the government can act to instead of the Chinese government doesn't give, right, $200 or $500 or $1,000 to families in China to afford their food. They simply control the prices of the food, or make sure that the food prices stay at affordable rates by controlling the capitalist class, so that people can go out and easily afford whatever food they want. The Chinese government, instead of like giving people, this $1,000 or that $2,000 to just basically subsidize the profits of healthcare companies. That's what the Obamacare does, actually. That's what all American system does, right? It's just a military-industrial complex for food and housing. The U.S. healthcare is the government prints some money. Here's some money for your... Bernie is always for the prescription drugs because the Democrats are for the big capitalist Pfizer, DuPont, Johnson & Johnson, all the medical industry, like I was talking about the other week, right? There's the biotech, medical, fascist vegetable complex, and then there's the fascist beef, charlatan, hydroxychloroquine, and oil complex, right? That's the Republican Democrat. But the Bernie Sanders doesn't care about Americans getting their drugs affordable. Bernie Sanders cares about the government printing money and then sending money to people so that they can increase the profits of drug companies by giving them money that where it wouldn't have been, so it can be a wealth transfer straight to those drug companies, right? The goal should be, like in China, just set the price of the drugs, have razor-thin margins for all the drug companies, or this is Cuba and North Korea have a different system. They just this is the prices of these. Sometimes the government will just set the price, right, or they just have no price. It's just this will be university is free. Like in Cuba, like I forget the exact system, but North Korea is like free college, free school, free housing. There's no housing market at all. You are assigned a house, right? So, or in China, there's no housing market, but like there's a market, but it's extremely controlled, right? And so, instead of the government printing money, giving money to you so that you can give that money straight up, pass it straight on to a corporation, they could give money to you, and so you can take that money and pass it straight on to Nestle, or pass it on to Coca-Cola with your food stamps, right? It's not, the money is not for you. The money is so the federal government can empower corporations and the capitalist class more and have another leash to control you. If you don't do what we say, and also collect data on you, right? Because if you got to get on SNAP, if you got to get on Affordable Care Act, you got to be deep in the system. Everything you do is monitored. Everything you do is controlled. Oh, you want to do anything revolutionary? No, because we're going to cut off your food. There goes your food stamps. Oh, you want to do anything revolutionary? No, there goes your Affordable Care Act. Oh, you want to quit the military? No, because that's how your medical, your GI Bill, all your military benefits, we're going to cut you off. We're going to cut you. You better not step out of line. So that's why the more you're, so again, so the big banks that handle the and every single one of these transactions, whether it's the Affordable Care Act or whether it's American healthcare that's subsidized, right? The military industrial complex is just like we print money, we give it to Lockheed Martin, right? And Lockheed Martin spends 90% of that money paying out huge pay packages and then makes a broken F-35, right? We give 50 mountains of billions of dollars to subsidize Elon Musk to make solar. He doesn't make barely anything. He sticks it mostly up his ass. He snorts it up cocaine. He does whatever he wants with it. And then he makes a handful of power walls and some broken solar panels. You give Elon a bunch of money to make world-changing car companies. He makes Tesla that's valued less than 1% of the car total vehicle market in car production, and he's valued beyond Toyota, Chrysler, GM, and Volvo combined. That make many dozens of times more total cars in total sales than him, right? So, but that's the same principle. You just give, right? It's not capitalism in the sense that Elon doesn't make like $1 trillion worth of Teslas, sell them, and then exploit a workforce, and then take the difference between like how much he paid his workforce and the cost of the lithium and the cars as profit. he just gets free money and then sticks it in his pocket and pretends to make a car, and it's all hype and it's all nonsense, right? But that's the same as the profits that Coca-Cola and Nestle and the profits that General Mills makes selling cereal, right? It's nothing to do with like how much cereal they made. It just, can we get close enough? Again, it's the Kantian effect. It's the neo-feudal, the neo-feudal dynasty, or where the closest you are to the king central bank, the more wealth you have, right? It's the high pope, the high priest of capitalism is just the central bank. If you can get close enough to get the free money shoved up into your pocket, right? Like Elon is just closer to the central bank than Toyota. If Toyota could somehow, it's too Japanese, it's too Asian, it's too far away, right? But if the narrative of like Mr. Mitsubishi is like he's like the future of the world, which is this is going to be the Japanese century. If America decided what we're going to do is we're going to pivot to Asia more hard, and we're gonna make Toyota's CEO the number one. If he became like a white man, if it was a white man Japanese CEO or CEO of a Japanese company, and America said, and he started talking about, I'm gonna invent solar power and I'm gonna invent renewable technology, and the Toyota CEO is like, I have the future is AI Toyotas, and then America could just give Mr. Toyota, right, the CEO of Toyota, $2 trillion of free money, and then he could buy back his corporate stock, stick it up his pocket, right? Put it up his ass, fucking make a Halloween costume out of it, wrap himself like a mummy, do whatever the fuck he wants with it, right? Just like Jensen Huang is right now, right? Jensen Huang took Elon's place, right? It's probably right? Because it's not about making products. It's a narrative to control the world's belief in capitalism itself. If you give all of the resources and money to these mountains of microcircuits and silicon, it's somehow going to make an AI that's going to solve war, poverty, crime. All the children will be geniuses. We'll all be living in some kind of fucking perfect future. It's like the Terminator Skynet future, but good. It's going to be like, and you just, so the money gets printed, it gets stuck in his pocket, and then the investors also take their money and they all stick it in his pocket. It has nothing to do with whether Nvidia's chips are being used to make anything. It's not making anything. It's all wasted electrons, it's all wasted software. Just like all of Elon's Teslas is wasted. He was using the visual pattern recognition AI. He's using the large model software to do his Tesla's self-driving, which empirically caused car crashes because the AI was unable to tell like a picture of a painted picture of a road versus an actual road, because it doesn't have the physical LiDAR sensors that the Chinese cars have, and that's why they have far less crashes. That's why nobody buys Teslas in China no more, because they all pass all the glitz and the honeymoon phase with that clown. But anyways, so right, but you see, like that's where like it's nothing to do with it has nothing to do with like how much product is being made, whether the product is good, whether it's competitive or not, especially at the phase of capitalism that we're in right now. But it's never been about that. It's about it's about controlling the entire society through the control of money flows and controlling people, right, through money flows, right. And the question is, this is what the actual people who go to the Davos conventions talk about. What prices should we set everything at? What narrative should we construct by giving a certain individual, whether that's Elon, whether that's Nvidia, right? The last bubble is AI. It's about controlling people through this narrative that there is a solution to all of our problems, and it is dumping all of our money. It is putting AI into your Google, into your phone, putting AI into your printer, putting AI into your art, putting AI between you and your girlfriend and your boyfriend, putting AI into what you're gonna be for Halloween, right? It's sticking AI in everything, and they're dumping all the money into that guy's pocket, choosing to dump all of these billions and trillions of dollars into a particular location. It's not necessarily to control Jensen Huang. That's not to control Nvidia, right? But it's to control the global capital flows and to control the minds of the world of people, right? And force them into this locked-in narrative that like the only way out is to put money into AI, and America is the only place that will do that kind of AI. We need capital going through these very smart, very talented people. It needs to go into these data centers that are being built everywhere. It has to go into everything. And the capital, the only place that does capitalism that can do that kind of God level Deus Ex machina, savior AI, is the United States, right? So that you see, like that, it's actually it went from the Elon capitalism will save the world because Elon Musk, he was getting all the money, because the narrative to control the again, it's about controlling 8 billion people's minds, telling young Chinese people, young Europeans, and young Africans and young Americans, the future is Iron Man, which is Elon Musk. That's the mind control narrative. We give him resources. You aspire to be like him. You move to America. You move to California. You move to New York, right? And you, whether you're African or you're Asian, the smartest Chinese, come on, give us all your, you have as many honor students as we have failing students and students in general. Send them all over so they can all be Elon, right? And all invent for us. And the narrative is like, we'll solve climate change. We'll create a multiplanetary civilization. But remember that whole narrative from the teens. And that's what all of Hollywood, which is part of the capitalist mind control process, right? Of trying to force people into that belief about what the possibilities of the future are, right? And that was the big story. That all of whether that's the government or this media, academia, all institutions were all geared towards crafting that narrative to control the world's minds, right? That is all broken down because America doesn't lead anything. Now the last narrative is, well, we might still be able to eke out an edge in AI. Capitalism still has got it, and we all gotta just take everything we got, especially the world's wealthy Arab leaders, wealthy people in Africa, wealthy people in Europe, wealthy South Americans. You're worried about the pink tide coming back. Wealthy Chinese, you're worried that Xi Jinping is gonna pop your housing bubble if you try to blow it again. And yeah, fuck it. In the grand scale, who the fuck cares? Right? Because the world needs socialism, but the last capitalists of the world are all being told, they have any money, park it all inside of the United States, park it all inside of a Grok or a Meta or OpenAI or an NVIDIA center of some kind. Just park it all in there, and then we're going to invent this technology that brainwashes everyone. So all the socialists and all the communists will all be using Grok neural implants, and then they'll all have the Marx. They all have the revolutionary Maoist consciousness scrubbed out of all their fucking brains, right? And we'll have a free COVID installation with every brain chip. Every Grok Meta OpenAI brain implant will come with a free 6 rounds of COVID. So if you had any brain cells, for the masses, the billionaires are not going to get it, right? Because they're going to want to control everyone. But this is like, but obviously that's already basically failed. I mean, unless you can convince the majority of the world that the future is having rich old white, malicious, horrible people, brain socket mind control mechanisms inside everyone's fucking head. There's no way they can undo the global decolonization and decapitalismization process. Anyway, so long story short, so that's where and so to kind of end with the Franken-Wars. I've been going off for a while, but I gotta slow down. I kind of got lost in my thoughts for a bit there. It's already 1:40. So, anyways, so I don't think that people should not get, under the current conditions, like the government should just not be shut down, and the SNAP and the Affordable Care. People should not have to not have whatever it is, their healthcare or their food, right? But the part of the reason that the food costs are and the health costs are at the rate that they are at, right? It's similar to the reason that the Tesla valuation and the NVIDIA valuation is artificially high, right? Food and health costs are artificially high for the same reason that American missile costs are way, way, way high compared to Yemen or Russian or Chinese missiles. Because the capitalist government prints money, gives it to the private capitalist corporations to overcharge for missiles, food, healthcare, houses, overvalue their NVIDIA stock, their Tesla stock, right? You know what I'm saying? And so that whole system, that it is, people should have the rights to, people should have all their needs. You don't need missiles. You don't need Patriot missiles. We don't need NVIDIA in particular. You might need some semiconductors. You might need some chips. You don't need NVIDIA company. You definitely don't need, this Torment Nexus death cult software run by Peter Thiel and his techno king neo-feudalist wannabes. But people need chips, semiconductors. People need food. People need houses. right? And the system, a government that was not a haunted house plutocracy, that wasn't a Franken democracy, never was a real democracy, right? That wasn't a horror show. That was acting by, for, and of the people based upon actual real mass organization and the real work of the people that would have to come together and organize to get rid of the current system and put a new system in place, like some of the places I have mentioned, would be able, right, to construct an economy and to control the prices of the food, of the healthcare, and to control the wars and just simply not have the wars. The wars are happening because the capitalists are in charge and they want the wars to profit from and to control the world through imperial hegemony, right? So a people's government would stop the wars. You wouldn't have the Franken-Wars. You wouldn't have, and the capital, would be built with indigenous characteristics, and and they would have a indigenous socialist Turtle Island, not a capitalist imperialist death cult United States, with this haunted war criminal filled White House as its lead, prime building. You know what I'm saying? So I'm trying to come back to where I came from, but long story short, because I know the way I was kind of seemed to be suggesting that people should not get the SNAP and EBT. Right? I don't think that they're gonna. I don't think that they are going to. I don't think the United States wants to collapse and have total revolution next month. So I don't think they're gonna cut off 40 million people's food, because they're gonna basically totally implode and be. It's gonna be. America's already imploding, but they would rapidly accelerate that. And a lot of rich people could not be alive by December, if it really went really fast. Because the United States, they already, again, I did the Civil War update with the war within, right? The United States, Steve Bannon said Donald Trump will be president for 3 terms. And he's one of the key MAGA Trump forces, think tank. No, he's not a think tank. He is one of the key ideological leaders of that whole movement, and his goal was ultimately to actually bring down the whole U.S. government. He's actually said that before. It's my goal is to basically destroy what he deems as the tyranny in the U.S. government. And so he said Trump will be in for a 3rd term, and when they asked wait, that would mean Trump would have to overthrow the United States, and he just said, well, Donald Trump is divine. Donald Trump is sent by God, right? So if you're a Christian right winger, then he's saying we have to accept that the earthly forces must be the earthly forces of the liberals that have destroyed America must be countermanded by the force of Jesus Christ himself that has taken, that is taken flesh. The second coming is here, and it is an orange Oompa Loompa with small hands. Anyways, I think that and so part of the scaring is, I do think it's about scaring. It is about terrorizing the masses, right? It's about scaring people, right? The shutdown is about scaring people. The kind of people freaking out about the White House is a kind of a spectacle and a distraction. It's a kind of like another January 6th. I mean, not January 6th, like a No Kings. And all the discussion over the. I think a lot of the back and forth, people, obviously, one of the things is people are saying, well, we have to just do mass mutual aid when it comes to food. If people are going to get cut off of food and people can't access healthcare, we're going to have to do just donate huge amounts to food banks, or here's all this food that I'm ready to help with whoever needs help with bread, or with I have all these vegetables I'm growing, or I'm just going to donate a whole bunch of food to various mutual aid causes that, that need it. Which is, of course, that's all definitely a legitimate thing to be doing. I mean, ultimately, any sufficiently advanced mutual aid, any sufficiently advanced network of mutual aid, arguably is indistinguishable from socialism, right? People, it's I have this amount of ability to produce this amount of this thing, food, or I have access to it, and now these people need it, so I get it to those people, right? And like on a large scale, if you get it organized enough, then you could have a system like Cuba, China, Vietnam, or somewhere else has. Like arguably, some people's, none of these are perfect, but whatever that system is, the food being free and it being distributed one way, the cost being controlled, right, so that everybody can get access to it for a very easy price. And if you're really, really desperate, then there's places to get it. The Hawaiian system is everybody harvests. The old Hawaiian system would be everyone harvests and then distributes food according to need at the luau and throughout the processes. There was no capital transaction, and all of the labor, all of the produce of the labor was supposed to be redistributed by the stewards of our Hawaiian ahupua'a system, just from a native Hawaiian perspective. That's how we ensured that all of the needs of the people was being met, and everybody who was able to work was working as well. There were other systems of encouraging everyone to make sure that they're contributing to the community what they can. I mean, because it does take labor to grow and to harvest and to distribute all that food, and build houses, et cetera, right? So people that's another piece of that too, is like how to keep people, working together to produce for the community and for the society, and then making sure that what is being produced is getting to people, and that no small group, conniving group of not so nice people, usually straight white guys, are coming together to hoard vast quantities of the produce of the collective work of humanity in any particular place. So, anyway, happy Halloween. Okay, so before I go, I just want to share one last thing. It's already 10:49. I did put a short video, so I'm going to share this now. It's called it's a sneak peek from Neofeud 2, called. Okay, my Twitter seems to be going very slow right now. Wake up. Okay, here we go. I'm composing music just on the Neofeud 2 updates. It is a new track I've composed called The Garden of Weaving Pass, where Neofeud's Garden of Working Pass at last converges. It's music for Neofeud 2 over in-game footage. Okay, so I'm just going to play this. If you would like to get this, I have also released this on Bandcamp, so you can now get this piece of music I've composed on Bandcamp, and I'm going to play this now. Anyways, so that's like this is currently it's also an update on what I am working on when it comes to games. I am about halfway done with the music approximately, and so that's that music is if you've seen the Neofeud trailer, you might recognize a composition that sounds similar to that, and this is like basically the sequel to that piece called The Garden of Weaving Paths, the sequel to The Garden of Forking Paths, which also echoes what happens in Neofeud 2 as well. Just to give you a little bit of foreshadowing of what you are in store for if you get the game. And you can get this music on the Bandcamp. And don't forget, everything we do here is, as always, supported by direct support to Ko-Fi at ko-fi.com/SilverSpook. You can also give us a one-time donation there. You can also help us out at patreon.com/Neofeud, where you can give us ongoing support and also get access to behind the scenes of the SilverSpook cooperative, the anti-colonial, anti-capitalist cooperative here in Hawaii, led by indigenous Hawaiians like myself. If we don't get SNAP, food stamp benefits, in the next month, we got lots of food. That's part of why we've been trying to grow as much food as we possibly can for a long time. We grow way more. I will tell you this: we grow way more sweet potatoes than all four of us can possibly eat. I was thinking about like putting fried sweet potato leaf chips, because I fry out sweet potato leaf chips kind of like the dried seaweeds, like salty, oily, and leafy, crispy kind of snack. I was thinking about selling those in the front because we got so many of this. We simply cannot eat it all. So anyway, you can also help us out. You can help us finish the games like this is another game we're working on with the SilverSpook Cooperative, including the younger cooperative members. And also, Neofeud 2 is still in progress. Like I said, I'm done the voice acting, halfway done with the music, approximately. Still working on that. And you also get access to SilverSpook Discord behind the scenes of what we're working on, and SilverSpook University, over 1,000 hours of the content we have produced here at the SilverSpook Cooperative, categorized according to topics. So SilverSpook University is like basically from Hawaii history, Africa, Asia, the Americas focused, economics focused, videos and threads, and queer, gender and race focus, or various other kind of topics. There's a whole ton of material we've put out there over the years, and you get access to that when you become a member of SilverSpook University. You can also follow at SilverSpook Games at Neofeud is also on sale. That's the big thing, is Neofeud's on sale. You've been waiting to get it. Don't forget, Neofeud is still out there, and it's ready. It's only $4.49 for less than the price of a Big Mac, for less than the price of a Starbucks frappe, cinnamon chai, pumpkin spice frappe. You can get yourself your very own Neofeud. Look at that. A retro anti-capitalist cyberpunk video game and about a social worker for homeless robots, an ex-con robot, and an ex-trillionaire princess trying to overthrow a global oligarchic neo-feudal techno-king-led system. And this is also a game that you can leave even a very short review on the Steam, and it really helps us get the game discovered in the Steam algorithm. So if you like Neofeud, don't forget to leave some kind of review, and it really helps us out. You can also grab Neofeud on itch.io for Windows and for Mac and for Linux on itch.io's website. You can also get Decolonizers, a game where you kick capitalist colonizer butts out of your sovereign country. Indigistar and Pigeon with Gun and Woman is a book by Holly, who was raised in right-wing evangelical culture, criticizing that culture in this perspective of Mary from the Bible. And there's also there's all kind of stuff over here. Well, we actually have a bunch of. There's the Neofeud short story collection, the Terminus Machina short story collection, and there's at least seven albums and other music on the Bandcamp site. So I always forget, but we got all these potential things that you can get. That is various SilverSpook products, and help us out. And anyways, thanks everybody for watching. Thanks to our Patreons for your ongoing support. Massively appreciate all of your support. Really helps us keep going in these difficult times. Sorry if I was a little bit flippant about certain. I hope that Americans don't suffer. That's not my goal. I hope that everybody does get all the support. Everybody deserves. They have rights to food and to housing and to life. They should have all those met. I don't want to make it seem like I'm some kind of supporting cutting everyone's. That's not what I'm trying to say. I'm saying everybody should have all their needs met without anyone else getting in between, and weaponizing their benefits and weaponizing their people's rights to food and housing and healthcare against them. You know what I'm saying? And against all people. So that's what everyone I'm trying to get at. Thanks to all of our Patreon members, and we'll see you on the Twitch stream. Happy Halloween. I'm going to dress up as something this afternoon on Twitch.